Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Here we go.
All right, so I want to start with the driver market because this week we had some news, right? And it's not just, you know, every year it can get more and more complex as the dominoes fall, right? And so this week we had the news that Gasly has signed a new contract, right?
Right.
And we all, you know, we're talking about where is he going to end up? And of course, really the dominoes, the whole equation started when Checo signed his new contract. That was probably the big thing. But I was just thinking about it from all the way down the line because we've heard talk about Ricciardo and the things that Zach Brown has said. But just to wrap up Gasly, he's formally confirmed for AlphaTauri for the 2023 season.
Yep.
Checo signed a 2-year contract with Red Bull.
Yep.
But the next thing that probably happened was Ricciardo, because that came to surface because Zach Brown started talking about Ricciardo and saying it's not guaranteed that he's going to come back. But if you go back and look at what Zach Brown said, you immediately, when you hear him say that, you think, oh, he's just trying to pressure Ricciardo to get his act together and start doing better, which he has finished ahead of his teammate Lando Norris the last couple of weeks. But what Brown said, what Zach Brown said, he said, it's what Ricciardo wants to do, making it sound like Ricciardo has the option, not McLaren in the contract.
Right.
So I thought that was, I just hadn't heard anybody talking about that aspect of that part of that.
Well,
equation.
I also saw something, and I don't know how reliable the source was, but the short version was Ricciardo has the option to stick with a McLaren team. Like, not F1. Does he want to go play endurance? Does he want to go run Le Mans? What's
IndyCar?
He want to, in whatever. And so, you know, that's also an option if he decides he doesn't want that regimen of F1.
Yep. And now, of course, I don't see Ricciardo playing that card yet. I think that's way too premature to talk about
agree.
that. But what I thought, I started thinking about this, and I realized Ricciardo has not been out there bashing McLaren at all.
No.
And in fact, he's actually said the opposite. He's going, look, I want this to work. So I think that I think that will probably not change. If I had to make a call right now, I would say that probably wouldn't change. But you know, he definitely was not doing well and has only done a little bit better recently. So, and he got lucky that Lando had that horrific pit stop in the last race. Is the only reason he finished ahead of Lando, or the primary reason he finished ahead of Lando. So, but if he were to leave, that would clearly be the hottest seat in Formula One if he were to leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So next I want to talk about Sebastian Vettel, right? You know, he started really bad this year, started poorly. He's done better lately. He missed a couple of races at the beginning of the season with COVID, crashed at Australia coming right out of all that, which you kind of get that, right? You know, you think about anybody at the highest level of any sport, any motor racing, any series, anything, you're at the very highest level, and you miss two of your events, you're going to come out pretty poor. So he had that crash, but recently finished 8th at Imola, 10th at Monaco, and he barely missed points in Miami. I think it was Schumacher crashed him out there. And, you know, now that Aston, they did a big aero upgrade. The cars look faster. They did a huge aero upgrade actually in Spain, and that's starting to produce results.
Well, I'm going to counter that a little bit because apparently yesterday, Lance Stroll, or actually it came out today from Adam Cooper on Motorsport, always a great guy to follow. He's reporting that Stroll is still lacking confidence in his Aston Martin, that it just does not feel right. And he's not comfortable pushing it. And so, you know, I find that interesting because to me, he's really at risk. He's been getting shown up by Sebastian Vettel lately. And I think he better get serious. He's had some ugly offs, and
but he finished in the points last week. Though,
he keeps going well, and then
Yep.
it's very cyclical with him in the way he's working with that.
What did he finish 10th? I don't have it up, but I think it was 10th last week.
Yeah, I think it was.
Anyway, I mean, look, he does have the ace in the hole, the
Bad.
Stroll hole.
Yeah.
So he does have that. So he could, you know, we don't really know if Lawrence Stroll would actually, you know,
Fire his kid.
So we shall see. But
He's spending money. At least
well,
he gets something out of him.
That's true. It could be worse. But what do you think about Vettel, though? I mean, do you think as far as next year? I'm thinking of this driver market in the context of 2023.
I think Vettel is now contributing well to the team, and I think that's a reflection of his intention. I think we'll see him again next year. I think he'll be fine. Hopefully, we'll see Aston Martin continue to improve and him really show well. I think he wants to end his career in a better place, on in the standings than he is now.
That's probably not a bad idea. Next on my list, Fernando Alonso, who turns 41 in a few weeks, and to me, he looks better than he has in the last couple of years. I mean,
absolutely.
That rain qualifying second was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just magical watching him make that car do what it did in the rain.
I mean, he definitely looks better now than before his break, a little time away from F1. Everything about him, just listen to him and look at him and think back to what he was like 4 years ago, and just head down, just almost checked out at times, out in the lounge chair, after the car expired, things like that. I really see him, up on his toes, feeling good, in a positive mindset, which I think, quite honestly, is reflective of what his car is doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I never saw him where I thought he was like never did I see him, but that I thought he lost confidence. Now, did he look like, am I ever going to get back in Formula One? Is it going to be worth if I do, where I land?
Right.
But I don't remember ever seeing him lose confidence. When he came to the Indy 500 and when he came, he never, ever sounded like he had lost an inkling of confidence. Now,
no. I'll say he might have run his course in F1, but he wasn't done.
Yeah. So when you talk Fernando, and you talk Alpine, you got to talk about the other two parts of that equation. Ocon is under contract through 2024, right? But the hottest young driver coming up through Formula One right now is Oscar Piastri, who won, he won Formula 2. He's a reigning Formula 2 champion, right? He also won Formula 3, Formula Renault, the Euro Cup champion. And he's also, his resume is phenomenal, right? And he is the hottest young name and would surely be on any team's list, right? Well, he is an Alpine, product basically under their corporate contracts, right? So we don't know what's, I guarantee you when they were thinking that, they're thinking, if Alonso retires, he is about to be 41 years old. But Alonso said he wants to be racing for 2 or 3 more years. And I could see that right now. I don't see his skills waning at all. So that becomes a very interesting part of that discussion.
So if you're not familiar with Oscar Piastri, yes, that's his racing pedigree. He's about 21 years old. He's an Aussie. He is well thought of in the paddock, and quite honestly, we can talk about it a little more than we did before. In April, he was here at the Circuit of the Americas doing some of his driver points requirements.
That's right.
They've got to be watched. They've got to perform. They've got to do all these different things. And one of the obsolete cars, he was out here. I remember it was a Tuesday night, and some of the bicycle crowd that goes out and runs bicycles on COTA was there, and nobody knew what that was, and they quickly closed the garage doors around it. But it was Oscar Piastri out here doing some of the test drives and some of the time in the seat that he was doing with the Alpine F1 team. Like I said, again, in a 2021 A521 car.
Yeah, which they have to. They can't have the new cars.
Right.
Yep, and so that will be very interesting. The rumors of him right now, strong rumors of him, of a temporary move to Williams. Because what did I say a while ago about Sebastian Vettel sitting out 2 races? Well, can you imagine Piastri sitting out 2 seasons, right?
Right.
Going from F2, what's he been doing other than doing test duties for Williams? I don't know what else he's been doing, but if he sat out 2 full seasons, if he didn't race next year, if I were to own that asset, that's the last thing I would want. And Williams would be the perfect place again, right? Because you're really not competing with yourself if you put him in a Williams, at least, the car that we see today. So you're not going to compete against yourself. And also Williams has this track record of kind of taking a driver on loan like this and being okay with the way that process works. I mean, look, if you're at the back of the grid like Williams is, at least when you had Russell,
don't get any further back.
Well, my point is that when you had George Russell, there was something to talk about at least, right? Mr. Saturday and all that. So if you were to get Piastri next year, you'd have something positive happening in your team. So that would work. All right. So my last driver, and then we got to go to break because this segment's running along. My last driver that I have on my list, and I started building this a week ago before this driver had a pretty good week. And that's Lewis Hamilton. And you're thinking, wait, what? Lewis Hamilton in the silly season? Because when I started this, it was before he had a pretty good race last week.
Right.
And I was thinking, if Mercedes continues to struggle, because I still say Mercedes right now reminds me of Haas of 2 or 3 years ago, when Haas had to just basically start over and take the car from last year and just start from scratch again.
Yep.
I feel like that's the way that Mercedes has been. They have not been able to get it figured out. And in fact, George Russell even said it. He said something like, we're struggling every single week. In fact, I tweeted that from our account. Let me see if I can get that quote. But the really what I'm getting at is the fact that actually I'm confusing that with Max Verstappen. Anyway, so Lewis Hamilton. What if Mercedes got to the end of the season, they hadn't figured it out, and they didn't have a lot of hope for figuring it out next year? Could Hamilton walk away? It's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Stranger things have
happened. He's got this
happened.
movie project he's working on.
That's
with,
right.
Brad Pitt, I think it was, and music and all kinds of things.
So if the Mercedes seat opened up, that might trump the McLaren seat that I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
So that's my driver market for 2023 kind of breakdown for the time being. And now we have to go to a break. But when we come back, we're going to go into the second dimension. And we're going to talk about some Formula One technology that I want to propose. You're listening to Speed City. Back after this.